All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of the Unpredictable Pipeline. We are talking to marketing leaders who have been managing their teams, their companies, their industries through 2020. We all had different ideas of what this year might look like in January. COVID happened, and it's been a bit of a year of headwinds. So joining us today for discussion, Brian Goldfarb. Do I call you CMO of Chef, former CMO of Chef? What do we call you now?
I think former as of yesterday.
Literally as of yesterday. So that'll be part of our conversation here, talk about unpredictable pipeline. But yeah, I mean, this has been an interesting year for all of us, interesting year for you, where you've had, a team that you've been leading through COVID, leading through market changes, but also kind of leading the organization then through some M&A activity over the last couple of years. Maybe start with just let people know, what is Chef? What do you guys do? And then maybe talk us through initially just what was March like for you guys, going from, starting the year strong on a trajectory for something different, and then all of a sudden everything changes.
Yeah, no, well, first, thanks for having me on the show. It's exciting to be here. It has been a crazy year in so many ways. So I was weird on pronouns and tense here, the CMO of Chef Software. It's a Seattle-based configuration management and security company, recently sold to Progress Software, a publicly traded software company based out of the Boston area. And Chef's been in the DevSecOps space for kind of the beginning. It was kind of the inventor of DevOps and helped usher in a movement of how you can help IT professionals and system administrators manage web scale infrastructure in 2008, in the last recession when it began. And over the last 12 years, it's expanded to work with some of the largest businesses on earth in managing cloud, private cloud, on-premise infrastructure, application deployment, and most recently, we had a big opportunity and continue a big opportunity in managing desktops, very relevant to COVID times, as well as security and compliance, and helping people ensure that the machines are to the state that they want them to be for security. Yep. So it was a very fun ride, and obviously bittersweet to be sitting on the former side of that coin, but always we learned a lot along the way.
Well, life's a journey, right? And I think it doesn't always go the way we want, but appreciate you being here, willing to share. And I know we've got as you guys went through the initial sort of COVID pivots, obviously sort of your board, your leadership, looking for sort of examples of how you're doing that. And you actually had some slides from your board deck that you're willing to share here. I'm going to throw them up here, and we'll have to have you sort of like walk us through how you communicated your strategy to the board, as well as sort of what the strategy was and how you pivoted.
Yeah, I mean, I think, just to even step back, right? Things were going incredibly well for our business in Q1, coming off a transformation year in 2019, where we focused on repeatable sales plays, higher velocity, go to market, more very specific solutions that people could buy. And we were on a great path. And then obviously March happened, and really it was the end of March. One of the interesting observations from a marketing perspective is first half of March and second half of March actually didn't have much impact. Like, the world was changing around us, but we didn't see it materialize in the numbers. Maybe they were lagging a little bit. Well, they were certainly lagging a little bit, but we looked at our pipeline generation, our sales close rates, and what was happening towards our Q1 was on the calendar, and everything was pretty normal, which was odd, right? We were mission critical for most companies. We weren't seeing a lot of impact. And then April happened, and we saw kind of a crater of activity. We saw people, budgets were freezing, tons of uncertainty, pipeline generation slowed, people stopped answering calls. Life disruption started to materialize in the fundamentals of the business in April. And April and May were dark months. We were fortunate we didn't have to lay off any of our staff. We were able to, pull the reins in, be smart about spending on the marketing side. And we started aggressively trying to figure out, well, now what? Like, everything's different. We were lucky because Chef was a remote first company. So we were all used to being from home a lot of the time. 70% of our staff wasn't in the office in Seattle. And so our transition to work from home was 100% seamless. It was like, oh, just another day. But all of the things that we were doing were no longer effective. And so this slide was sort of a way to capture some of the thinking around our first instincts when it came to what do we need to do differently for marketing in a COVID quarantine world, right? Everyone's at home, no one's in person, you don't know where anybody is, all of your data is no longer interesting or accurate. Every benchmark you've ever had that tells you how to measure what you're doing is probably wrong, and you're kind of swimming in the dark. And we made 3 bets. Right, the first one, which I don't think is unobvious, but we were in a process of building out a comprehensive e-learning platform for practitioners that we called Learn Chef Rally at the time, now just Learn Chef. We wanted to pump the gas on that as hard as possible. How do you get remote training up and running in a more effective way as a channel for practitioner onboarding and pipeline generation? And then we were in the middle of a pretty massive web redo, and we just wanted to put all of our energy into getting that done. We recognized that the interactions we were going to have with customers were going to be even more web-centric than they were 3 days before, right, Matt? So we needed to pump all the energy to there. So how do we accelerate our core online web assets? That was bet number 1. I'm kind of on top of everything else. 2, we had been working on fairly large, comprehensive marketing campaigns, right? Things that were going to be long running for big topics like security, big topics like a coded enterprise brand campaign. And all of a sudden, all the math behind those campaigns stopped working. It just didn't work. It didn't make any more sense. And so we pivoted to what are fast, 1 week, 1 day, 2 week micro campaigns or lightweight campaigns that we can execute as effectively experiments in a rapid basis to just learn what the coordinates of the room we were in even looked like. Because I think we were just in the dark and we didn't want to bump our head or invest too much money in the wrong thing. And for us, what is DevOps was a big search term. We saw traffic crater because everyone was searching like death and quarantine and COVID and God knows what else. All happy topics. So that was the second bet. Let's just do small targeted things, learn as much as we possibly can, as fast as we possibly can. So when we get to, and at the time we thought, maybe things will be okay in the late summer and we'll be able to go forward with that learning. And then the third area was we knew right away that their in-person field marketing and ABM was never going to be the same. And we wanted to get in front of digital events and digital engagements. And so we had our conference, which is it's crazy to think we had a multi-thousand person in-person show scheduled in the first week of June in Seattle. And we had to pivot that completely digitally in 8 weeks with expectations we had to go through. There was a contracting mess and there was the customer mess and there was the reach mess. And we had to redo that. Gartner wrote about us in a case study actually with some other great companies like Adobe in our success there, kind of inventing some new partner engagement models. And frankly, we pulled off a miracle, not gonna lie. We had like 10x the registration. We reached a more international audience. A lot of the things I think everyone has already learned going through this digital events process. And then the last part of the digital engagement was we had an ABM kind of engagement plan that was executing, and we lost access to the people. We didn't know where they were. Oh, wow. And so we had to completely restructure how that was going to work because there was a bunch of dollars getting poured into that. So those were the 3 big bets, right? How do we go faster on web? How do we do experimental micro campaigns? And how do we get ahead of digital engagements and digital events like webinars and in big in-person events? A lot of that we were forced to be there.
Yeah. Well, in all of these unpredictable pipeline interviews we've done, no one has shown us board slides yet. So this is really great to sort of see it organized like this. A couple quick follow-up questions. I think, when you now look at a few months of results from lightweight campaigns and sort of think of that compared to some of the deeper campaigns, if you were planning for 2021, how would you balance sort of those lighter agile campaigns against having some of those broader, longer term campaigns? What worked well, what didn't, and how would you think about that?
Yeah, so the micro campaigns were good in a lot of ways. We got a lot of data on what was working and what wasn't. Like we found email was working less than it had worked in the past. We saw video-based campaigns were actually improving. Our community-oriented activities had higher uplift than they had in the past. And we were getting a lot of success from digital field engagements, actually, that were attached to big ticket events. Mm-hmm. One of the things we also saw is tail engagement on activities was zero. So we put all this energy into, hey, let's run this big conference that's going to be digital, and we spent weeks in this 8-week crazy period trying to figure out what is the post-digital engagement experience. How do we get people to come back and reuse the content? And the curve went up and then went to zero, effectively to zero. I mean, it was fits and stats. So we had a big learning around big moments create energy, and then they dissipate almost instantly. And I've heard that from many of my peers that they're seeing similar things. So as we look to 21, there's really two things I think about, and wherever I end up going next, it's top of mind for me, right? First, I think you need to really lock in on the drumbeat concept. I think it's something we talk about a lot in marketing, like what's my product launch drumbeat, or what's my conference drumbeat, or this. I think companies need to figure out an owned and operated approach to having 2 or 3 big moments that they can direct energy towards to get lift with their audience. And that's kind of the new integrated campaign for me, because I don't think the big multi-channel efforts are working at the same level of efficiency. So I want to create owned and operated pops that we can then attach to, and then surround all of that with the micro campaign. So rapid testing and continuing to try different things, different modalities, different messaging. I think every month, different words are working better. You see search traffic changing so quickly. So that's kind of my big focus area for next year, and how I would balance across those two things. I think the reality is next year, probably all of 21 is going to look a lot like the last 7 or 8 months. And maybe we start to see some recovery in the out quarter, but I'm not planning for that.
No, and I think it's interesting. There's an interesting planning, sort of 2021 planning thread on the CMO Coffee Talks Slack group just about next year, and pretty much everyone's assuming that it's going to be a sort of a zero live event year. Like if they come back in the second half of the year, that's great, but we're not going to plan for that unless we sort of see momentum enough for that. So now let's think about 2022 then. So ChefConf has been a successful in-person conference. A lot of people have had to make that shift this year and are going to have to make that shift again next year. What were some lessons from taking it purely digital this year that would change some of the strategic elements in how Chef should run it in 2021, and how other companies should think about core components of driving a successful online event at this scale?
Yeah. Oh. Man, it's interesting because we did it in June, and June feels like literally forever ago. Like, we're like 30 days, we're like 300 days into March. So it's hard to even think about it. We, one of the things we put a lot of energy in was how do we make it unique and different? And I think in June we were able to accomplish that. I don't think now you can. Like, I think all the unique and different things are done. And maybe I will be proven wrong by someone doing something unique and different, but there's, my creativity is only so wide. So I think that part of the game is over. So it really becomes, how do you make it valuable? Like, I don't know. I think we're all experiencing fatigue and burnout in different ways. So I want to spend my time in very purposeful ways. One of the things we saw that was successful was giving people access to content, kind of the event content in a curated way, but in a time-bound way. So I think that's a big thing. When people, if you just put something on YouTube and hope they're going to go watch it on their own time, I don't think that's going to work. So having the time-bound nature of it. The other thing I think we did wrong, the field sales team really was like, normally you do a bunch of EBCs and you have a lot of robust executive customer meetings and lots of bar time and the things that are very difficult to replicate online. But we realized, like, hey, it's a virtual event. We don't have to attach the day and the motion against those meetings together. We can separate those. That was a mistake because the meetings never happened, right? We by unhooking them, we gave people a little bit too much liberty, both on the customer side, so being accountable to having the conversation with us, and on the execution side with the person doing the work. And so I think for go forward 21 virtual events, like I would try to make sure everything is inside the time envelope and executed. That would be a big change. I think the other area where we learned is how we work with partners. We significantly undervalued our partner program, our partner sponsorship, because it was early, and we're like, hey, let's just try to do, I don't remember what we charged, but I think it was like 5 or 10K. Like, it was just too little.
Yeah.
Mainly because the partners got a lot of value. Like, we got a lot of good contacts, that we shared a big list. They got good exposure. They had great footprint, frankly, more than they might have even gotten at a physical event, just because of the sheer quantity of engagement difference.
Yeah.
But at 1/20th the cost, not to mention like travel and swag. So maybe like 1/80th the cost if you really fully load it. And we just screwed that up. We look back like, oh man, we left several $100,000 or more on the table. And not that I want to extort partners. That's not the goal, right? But it's that money then is used to reinvest in partner activities, partner motion. And we just didn't, we didn't get the full value for what we delivered. So I would urge anyone listening right now, if you have a partner community, if you work with partners, make sure you spend the time to really understand what value you're providing and that you're getting compensated appropriately for it. So I think that would be a big thing going forward.
Good lesson. Well, Brian, I know you're super busy. The deal transaction just closed a couple days ago. I really appreciate you taking time to do this. Appreciate your candor, your openness, just your willingness to sort of share sort of what worked and in some cases what didn't work is super valuable to hear. So, Brian Goldfarb, if you're looking for a great CMO, he is now in the market. That is not going to last. If you're a board or CEO listening to this, call him now. He's building this pipeline, but it's going to happen quickly. So, Brian, thanks so much for joining us.
I need a couple weeks off, Matt. That's what I need, a couple weeks off.
It's a good listen. It's a good time to do it. Take advantage. There will be opportunities for a long time, but
and it's Chef was an amazing company, and the people that are still there, I'm so proud of all the great work they've done. We built a pretty amazing marketing team, and anyone who has the opportunity to work with any of those folks will be really lucky. So,
well, and I can do, Brian, we're both here in Seattle. I know Chef has a really good reputation as just a good team, a good culture, good people, good place to work, and good people. So, definitely, if you see someone with Chef on their resume, those are solid folks you should definitely consider. All right, Brian.
Agreed.
Good enough for today. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Great to be here. Appreciate it.